Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I am doing a version of a cake that I had done before a long time ago. You probably never saw. I did it with fondant. But now that I have more experience with wafer paper, I thought let's do this same design with wafer paper. So this is a modern, updated Ruffle Rose Cake. And my cake is already stacked and filled and crumb coated. And now I'm putting on the final coat of buttercream. I didn't want to worry about adding any color to the paper, so I just decided to go with white. And my first design that I did with the fondant years ago, which was a very popular one, but that was back in the days of everything being on Facebook. Instagram wasn't even a thing. Wow, just aged myself. Anyway, it was really popular with the white, so I just stuck with that. It's more kind of airy and ethereal. So what we're doing is I'm using 0 grade wafer paper. I cut them down into 2-inch strips. There's 2-inch ones and then 1.5 inch strips. And then I cut them each in half in a wavy line and set those aside in a bag, an airtight bag until I was ready for them. And then I cut out circles, and the circles are going to be what we're going to build our Ruffle Rose on. I just made some wafer paper glue, which is wafer paper in water, just submerged, and then put it in the microwave for about 10 to 30 seconds until the wafer paper has dissolved. Let it cool, and then that becomes a glue for you. So I brush that on, and then I'm taking my waved pieces of paper, and I'm utilizing, instead of the steamer, I am using skewers instead to form them. You can use skewers to form your wafer paper, kind of like you can with a steamer, but it doesn't warp the entire thing. It just kind of gives it a little bit of a bend. And I thought this would work better because I'm going to go in and create the softness in the petals after I have them all applied. Now I'm just showing you how I'm doing this with, I think, 2 of these. We'll see in a second here. I edited this 2 days ago, and now I'm doing my voiceover, so I can't remember exactly. But I did, just keep in mind that I did this with almost all of those circles. So there's quite a few of them. And your wafer paper will want to warp up a little bit with the dampness of the glue, but that's okay. I just put some cornstarch on the mat so that it's not sticking to the mat. You're not going to see the circle of paper once it's on the cake. And I'm just wrapping them around. And I think wrapping them around the skewers definitely helps in the placement. I use a smaller skewer for the center of the Ruffle Rose and a bigger skewer for the outside because they don't need to have as much of curvature to them. And I don't know if you caught that with these pieces of paper, I did go in before I used them and I curved those edges. So edges or the ends of the paper so that you don't have a blunt edge to it that blends in a little bit better. Now here's all of them all together. Now I just set them aside for a few minutes, maybe half an hour to an hour, and they will be dry enough to put on the cake. But before we do that, we're going to need to prep our cake for it to accept the wafer paper ruffles on it. And now I'm brushing, since this is just buttercream, you would do the same thing on fondant, actually. But I am just brushing on some piping gel. This is how you get your wafer paper to stick without it warping and without just any buttercream or any other kind of a product. Because wafer paper sticks best to wafer paper, correct? With water or a wafer paper glue. But to get the wafer paper stuck to the cake itself, we're going to use piping gel. And I just wrapped the paper around the cake with the freshly brushed on piping gel. And then just fold the paper over the top edge, over that lip. Because you're not going to see this paper anyways. It's kind of an in-between element to help you get your design stuck onto the cake. And then I put another piece on the backside. And I did spray it with a little bit of water, especially the pieces that are standing up, to give them enough flexibility to wrap over the top of the cake. And there was piping gel on the top also. And now, since it's nice and wet still, for the most part, I could just stick the Ruffle Roses right on it with no problem whatsoever. And then I use some toothpicks to kind of hold it in place, because you wouldn't want to make your ruffles any bigger than these because they don't have the curvature of the cake. If you went bigger, they would seem like they're just kind of sitting raised up on the edges of the ruffle. Does that make sense? Because they won't wrap around. But I'm using the toothpicks to hold them in place and hopefully kind of coax them into bending a little bit while it's drying. And I did not cover the entire thing with rosettes because you're going to have some gaps, and I had a plan. I have some more of the pieces of paper with that cut with the wave in it, and softened up the ends of it again so that you don't have a real 90-degree angle at the end. And I'm just manipulating them. I did use a steamer for a few pieces. And the other ones, I'm just not doing anything specific with them. I'm just making sure that they are sticking to the wafer paper that's underneath. You can brush on some more piping gel if it starts to dry out, because it might want to do that, because this does take a little while to do. I know this is sped up, but this probably took me a good 2 hours to do this part. So make sure you leave yourself enough time, and it's well worth it. And then I'm using, again, some more of the toothpicks to hold those extra pieces in. And these are just those little six-lit candies that have, they're pink with a little bit of a sheen on them. I bought them that way. I would probably not take the time to make those individually, but they're edible. They're just chocolate. And I stuck those on with some more piping gel. You might have to fidget with them a little bit to get them to stick, but if you just stick, no pun intended, if you stick with it, they will eventually just grab a hold. And then I'm using my steamer to soften those edges. I'm just holding them, not in one place for a long period of time. Kind of move it around, and you can kind of see that the paper is starting to kind of warp and soften a little bit. And that's exactly what I wanted it to do. Otherwise, it's just hard spiraled pieces of paper, and I wanted it to be softer and, like I said, ethereal and kind of whimsical. So the steamer is going to be what's going to do that. And if you need to, stick Q-tips in there also while those dry. And I will show you how I deal with the toothpick holes in a second. And once we get all those toothpicks in there and get everything where we want it, we're going to set it in the refrigerator to dry and firm up a little bit. So maybe give it about an hour in the fridge before you take it back out again. This is basically our final design, but I twisted those Q-tips out. Oh, I guess I didn't show you. Or did I? I was too busy talking. Anyway, to hide the holes, just get a piping bag with some buttercream in it, cut a small hole in the tip, and just go in and fill in those holes. And these are artificial flowers. If you wanted to be, this is not a cake to be sold for people to purchase. So to make it food safe, I would just stick small coffee stir sticks in there into the cake, and then stick your flowers into the stems. You just have to make sure that your straws are the right size for the stem of the flower. And I just added some more of the leaves just to soften it up. Thought, why not? I have them there. But I really love this fuchsia color with the white. Oh, here I'm going to show you what I did. Exactly like I said, just cut the tip. Sorry about my head in the way there. Happens every time. And just kind of sneak it in there and just fill in that little hole. And don't even worry about smoothing it, because nobody's going to see it. They're just going to not notice a hole in general. So here's our final product. I hope you guys liked it. I hope you got something from it. And again, if you want to dust some powders colored onto your wafer paper, go ahead. Do whatever colors you want. And we'll catch you on the next one.